Going to talk about functions. To start us off, I've set up our screen with void setup and void draw so that it looks like our normal coding environment. When we talk about functions, functions are something we create that allows us to do work over and over again with slight changes. Every function looks like this structure. So there's a type, there's the name, and then in parentheses, there's the arguments. And I put this ... because you can have multiple arguments. You just need to keep adding a comma. And then there's the curly brace after the end of the arguments in parentheses. And then there's the function body, where the stuff that happens when you call the function happens. There's one other note. When I say arguments, it's actually like argument type. Actually, I'm not going to put that there. So like an argument is made up of two parts. It's an argument type and an argument name. So what this might look like is I write void draw purple triangle. So I want this to make a purple triangle. I want it to be somewhere around some XY coordinates that the user puts in. So I'm going to make it a float X and a float Y. So float is the argument type for my first argument. X is the argument name for my first argument. And then I actually need a second argument, so I just added comma, float Y, and float is the argument type, and Y is the argument name. So we need to say the type so that whenever someone uses our function, they know what to give it. And then the name is what we use later in our function when we want to substitute that value in. If I wanted this to have less arguments, I would just delete that. And if I wanted to have no arguments, I would delete that. And if I wanted to add an argument, I would say comma, and I would say float Z. And you can keep doing that. You can say float A and just keep going. But I only need X and Y right now. The first thing I want to do is I want to make it purple. So I would say this part don't need the arguments for. So I would just say fill. The first part's red, so 100. The second part's green, so I'll say 0 and then 100 to make purple. So the red part is 100, the blue part's 100, and that about makes purple. And then I want to draw my triangle using this XY coordinate. So I'm going to use the triangle command. And then I can just say x, y. But I need 4 other numbers, so I might pick x plus 1, y, and y plus, and x, y plus 1. And that should draw a triangle around that xy coordinate. And that is our function definition. So this part, the fill in the triangle, is the body, and we can put as much in the body as we need to. We have our arguments, the float x and y, which are both floats, so floating point numbers, or numbers of the decimal point. Our function is called draw purple triangle, because that's what it does. It draws a purple triangle. And then the type, we're always going to use void right now, which just means that it doesn't return anything, unlike a math function, which might give you a number back. So that was a function definition. And now to use my function, I just write the function usage. I write the name, and then in parentheses, I put actual values as the arguments. So what that'll look like is draw purple triangle, and I would just say 10, 15, or 156, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And that would draw a purple triangle there. But let's say I have variables that I want to use, like maybe my hero x and my hero y, and I want to make sure I'm drawing the triangle wherever the hero is. I could say draw purple triangle, hero x, hero y, and those get substituted in. So the way this works, if I look at this first example, when we call draw purple triangle, it takes this 10 and substitutes it for x, and it takes this 156 and substitutes it for y. And then it creates the color purple, and it says, okay, we're making a triangle at 10, 156, 11, 156, and 10, 157. And then on the next line, it's like, oh, and we're creating another triangle. We're using 7 as x and 10 as y down here. So we make it purple. We say the triangle is at 710, 810, and 711. And we've drawn the triangle. So draw purple triangle is the name, and it takes these arguments, and that's super helpful. But if there was something where we just wanted to make a complicated image appear with no arguments, we could say void, I'm going to call this complicated game over screen. Oops, I'll call it draw complicated game over screen. And we could just make it take no arguments. So that's what these empty parentheses mean, is there's just no arguments. You still have to have the parentheses there, but you don't need to put anything inside it because there's no arguments. And then I could say, like, you know, make all the fancy stuff around the screen, write game over in the center, and on and on. And then when my game is over up here, I could just say draw, well, copy and paste that, draw complicated game over screen. And then I don't have to write it all. And it's really easy to see what's happening. So that's all we're going to say about functions today.